Wren Farris and I intended to come together to talk about money mistakes. You might remember her from this season's episode 2, where we talked about building a business off of social media. And in that episode, there was a line, a moment where we said, "Oh, we need to talk about money mistakes." So here we are having that conversation, but something unexpected happened. And you're going to notice it when you begin listening. You'll notice some hesitation at the beginning of our conversation, and it takes a little bit of us talking to land on this huge money leak for women. It blew both of our minds, and I love, love, love that we get to share it with you now. Before we jump in, I want to introduce Ren again. She is founder and CEO of a seven-figure top-of-class saltwater bathhouse called Soak on the Sound. She also works as a business consultant for women to turn their soul work into lucrative businesses. Ren is currently writing a book about marketing and has an incredible podcast called The Art of Feminine Entrepreneurship. All right, let's drop in together.
This opens our discussion on money. Can we call it missteps? What do you think, Isha?
I don't know. I don't want to call them mistakes, honestly,
I know.
because they're just learning. And I think that we need to take the, when we call them mistakes, we're sort of pushing ourselves to get it right. And that's part of why women don't take risks with money, is that we're trying to get it right and it just freezes us up. So yeah, maybe money learning, money lessons, money growth, growth edges.
I've been rolling this around on my tongue for a few weeks since we've been talking about doing this episode, and I literally cannot find another word. The best I can find is missteps, because I also don't want to bypass that these have been deeply painful moments that,
Mm,
could have been gone differently had something been different, will definitely go different in the future because of the learning and education and embodiment into money that I have now had because of these missteps. So I'm totally right there with you, but it's a little bit, we'll find a word, maybe we'll find.
yeah, yeah. And one thing that I wanted to name as you were saying that is that, because we don't grow up being educated with money, being educated in, right, like how to run a business and how to run a financially successful business, there are going to be missteps, right? There are going to be errors that you make naturally because you are learning as you go. And so it is sort of a natural process in the context of not being super well educated.
Absolutely. And, I don't know how to scuba dive. I really don't know how to play the guitar. I don't know how to speak Italian. I think about this in relationship to learning money. And
Yeah,
it's like, I am going to really not be good at the guitar, like really not good. But,
yeah,
and I don't know how to breathe underwater. Like, and yet anything that we apply ourselves to out of a true desire to learn and grow, we can learn. So,
yeah,
yes.
absolutely. Yeah.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Well, let's just also preface, we're just going to preface a little that you are a financial advisor as one of the many things you do. So you are very much in the world of talking with people about money on a regular basis. So you're deep in. I Yeah, and I work with a lot of women on their money stories as a business consultant, and not just their money stories, but real money management, small business, and just my experience in running and housing and holding large sums of money throughout time. So we're both coming in with being pretty darn steeped in these realms.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, one thing, a question that I had for you was, like you you have a successful business, and I was really curious about like because there's a lot of identity work that goes into holding and managing and stewarding large sums of money. And I was curious about like where in the process of building this business, what were places where you got stuck? Um, where are the places where you noticed like, ooh, I need to do an identity upgrade, and what facilitated that upgrade?
Hmm. The first thing that comes to mind is really separating out what you're doing from what other people think.
Mm,
And I remember early on in starting my brick and mortar spa business, Soak, there was an article written about me in the local paper, like a
mm,
like not one I participated in, not an interview.
oh.
And it was like, who is this woman? Thinks she is coming in with her California money. I was not from California. I mean, it was so interesting. I like sat there and I was young and I was new to town. I was an old family there. No one knew who I was. It never occurred to me that anyone cared about my business, and certainly like my personal business, and that like there would be someone who cared enough to write some kind of false editorial about me when I thought I was just building a spa that was going to give a gift of healing waters. I didn't realize that now all of a sudden, because I was scraping together the resources to bootstrap a build, I was now being looked at, called a trust fund or whatever was going on. And none of it was true. And it was one of those inflection moments where I could have written back to the letter and said none of that's true and explained myself. And, I didn't do that. And there was probably so many more times after that where this would be a theme, where you really had
Mhm.
to decide between putting your head down and being so in love with what you're doing that the noise doesn't rattle you, or you have to spend your
Mm.
time being rattled by the noise. And I was so freaking focused because everything I had and everything I could beg, borrow, and steal was on the line, that it was the beginning of my education about putting my fingers in my ears and my head down and staying in my lane.
Hey, real quick before we get back to the episode. You keep saying you want an indigenous matriarchy now, and I believe you. But wanting it and building it are two different things, and the gap between them is usually the absence of a system. So I built one. Sovereign Wealth is a free blueprint for matriarchal finance in intentional community, inspired and guided by indigenous wisdom. We're talking financial councils, rotating saving circles, barter economies, land based abundance, seasonal money ceremonies, and intergenerational wealth transfer, all of it organized into actual steps you can start taking right now. This isn't new, this is a remembering. Our ancestors built wealth without banks, without Wall Street, without any of their systems, and we can do it again with a modern twist. It costs nothing because the return to what's sacred doesn't belong behind a paywall. Download Sovereign Wealth using the link in the show notes. And if you're ready to take that fire into your business, I have something for you there too. Rooted to Rise is a step by step guide to organizing your business finances so your soul led work becomes a matriarchal money machine. 10 steps, nervous system check ins built in, a foundation for six-figure scalability that doesn't require you to abandon your body to get there. Two guides, one vision, both free. Download Sovereign Wealth and Rooted to Rise using the links in the show notes, and let's build. Okay. That's the conversation.
Wow, I love how you articulated that, like deciding to be in love, right?
Mhm.
I really love how you said that, because it is like when our businesses, even though we are not our businesses, if we are in a soul-led business, then a business is an extension of that, of your soul. It's kind of, it's out there, and not everybody's going to love that, and you have to decide to just ignore that noise, and be in your soul work, be in love with the soul work. I love that.
I think we should get tangible. You want to get tangible?
Let's do it.
Do you want to list some of your top money mistakes in detail?
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, no,
I'll go too.
I was, yeah, yeah. I, so there's, there's some energetic pieces that are tangible, and then there's just like the basic tangibles. So one of the big energetic pieces that became tangible was outsourcing my financial power, like not getting in the driver's seat of my finances, um, not tracking, letting somebody else take care of it. Obviously, we all have um, a specific relationship with money. And then when we outsource that to someone else, it's their relationship with money that is running the show, right? And that's going to blow back on us. Um, and that's, especially true if you have like a business partnership and things like that. And you're sort of like, whether it's a partnership in a relationship or a partnership in a business, it's going to blow back on you. So there's a tangible effect there. But also at the beginning of entrepreneurship, like I had no idea how, having a LLC versus an S corp, how that affected your tax structure, and like knowing that and knowing what to write off, what not, um, how to get savvy about that can like leave you, can end up with you paying a lot in taxes, which nobody wants to do right now because nobody wants to fund genocide and all the other BS that is funded by our taxes. Um, but I think a big one for me, one that I've had to learn over and over again, is like not tracking my expenses.
Mm.
Like, I think a lot of people are, they say like, I'm reinvesting money into my business, or, what I make goes back into my business. And I was like, well, like, are you tracking that? Like, are you putting aside money for taxes in case you do have to pay them? Are you paying yourself first? Are you investing the money? Are you breaking down those percentages? That is something that I learned way much later, like many years after I started my business. At the beginning, I'm just like, let's make some money. But I think having those structures early on, having that strong financial foundation of like, yes, I have my business is separate from my personal, which thank goodness I had early on. But then also, what percentage, a third of all of the money I make goes into a separate account, just in case taxes, or a savings account, in case cash flow is not flowing on certain months, right? Because there are ebbs and flows, just kind of like those are all those basic structures are there to take care of yourself. They're there to protect yourself. And I think that a lot of us don't think of those things until we're making more money, but they're really good to have at the beginning and to just be flexing that muscle from the very start.
Yeah, I can't talk about this enough in terms of consulting, and I have small business money majesty is one of my master classes, and one of the frameworks that's in my book that I teach women. And we really need to go back to go forward, one, because I'm going to go with zero point 0.0 women who have those things in place, no matter at what point in their business I meet them.
Hmm.
And so we really need to go back to go forward. But I do think the other part is that I am a huge stand for is making, that's why I call it small business money majesty, is like making it juicy, making it fun,
Yes.
making it sexy, as you and I have talked about. Like, there's nothing sexier than these spreadsheets once you like are in them and you learn them and you are at the helm of them. And anyway, it's part of unpacking the patriarchy that says women aren't good at business, and keeping that learning and that financial language away and separate and apart from us, instead of
Hmm.
something we like want to learn and engage with and feels accessible. So I feel like I'm a huge bridge, an advocate for that, because even as you're talking, I'm like, are women's ears glazing over? Because we just are so conditioned to think that stuff is boring, and it is actually red hot.
Yes, and the way that I got myself juiced up about it is, like there was a time where I was exploring like dom sub relationships, and I think about the dom has to do a lot of work tracking their sub. And I was just like, oh, yes, like, a lot of people feel like dominated by money. They feel controlled by money. But here, when you're tracking your money. So money is your sub
Mm.
and you are the dom. And that is sexy AF. This is a way to really turn the story around. And there's a lot of responsibility that goes into tracking. And you're also like, it's very like, it's very subtle. It's very like body aware, right? Because we track our own emotions, we track our body, our sensations, right? And just again, thinking about it as an extension of how we are already taking care of ourselves. That's how we take care of our money, and that's super juicy to me.
Mm, nice metaphor. We can go back to love here, and the first line of the chapter in my book called money is not a four-letter word,
Hmm.
and it truly is not. And then also deeper into that, if one were to give themselves permission to say a sentence like "I love money," I love money. Um,
Yeah.
I think about, we love our children, like, oh my gosh, I love these children. And then there are so many times where we treat them like annoying nuances that are just in our flow and in our way. And I
Hmm.
think that the mixed message with money is, I don't know if we even can get to the evolution inside ourselves, talk about permission. That's like, I love money. I love making money. I love spending money. I love managing money. I love money. I want money all around in my life because I know the more money I have, the more money I can give. All the things, allowance to have a relationship with money. If you're going to say that, you need to follow up on the back end. And that means it is not a chore to do your monthly accounting, because you are winning, because at the end of the year it's the same 15 minutes that you spent every month, and you know exactly where everything is, what's happened, what you might owe. Like, it is so intriguing. It's like the unlock. It's like, oh, I say I love this, then therefore I need to be willing to be around it, to not be afraid of it, to look at it, to talk to it, to touch it, to know what's going on with it. To where is it healthy? Is it unhealthy? Does it need some tending right now? What's going
Hmm.
on? So I really do equate money and love in that way, in those ways.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like you can't have a relationship with something and then just kind of like leave it sitting there.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, I love you, but then not
yeah,
do the things that demonstrate that love.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it is a living relationship. It's in a very alive relationship, which I think at times feeds into what I'm feeling about these missteps or losses not being called that so much. Because also, if you believe you're in a relationship with a flowing entity, and then something happens and you make a choice that leads to some of that flowing entity in your life either going away or not flowing toward you, um, do you then mistrust it forever?
Right. Right. You get your heart broken. Does that mean you never love again?
Yeah. Yeah. And so one of the questions was, what does it take to trust yourself again and stay in the game after a loss?
Yeah. I mean, I've had, like I've had like tangible losses in crypto. I've had situations where, in the times in my life where I haven't had a lot of money, I've made stupid mistakes that have made me lose money and like put myself in worse situations. And I'm like, damn it. And sometimes those are like shadowy moments where you're like, oh yeah, this is a moment where I was neglecting to be responsible or I wasn't taking care, and this is sort of the result of that. And so, coming back after something like that requires like forgiveness and gentleness, right? Just being like, all right, I messed up. I'm sorry. Um, okay, well, let's start over again. Or what am I going to do differently this time? Again, thinking about it in terms of a relationship, you want behavioral change, not just an apology, right? You want to you
Absolutely.
want to forgive yourself and you want to do it differently. And sometimes that's more accountability. Sometimes that is just kind of like maybe the mistake happened because you or the misstep happened because you weren't um yeah, you weren't paying attention. And so it's like, okay, well, I'm going to practice then paying more attention, or I'm going to practice tracking more, or I'm going to practice um being in a relationship or tending or stewarding. So I feel like, the three words that come up for me is forgiveness, right? Made a misstep. Okay, so how am I gonna repair this relationship? Okay, well, I'm gonna repair it by practicing and learning to trust myself again, right? Because I am holding myself accountable. Forgiveness, practice, and accountability.
Hmm. Yeah, I love how you're bringing it in. I can look at this list that I have in front of me of my missteps, and I can find a more subterranean reason
Hmm.
why it happened under every single one. And I think there's an
Oh yeah.
excavation where you go, oh, so wrong motivation for that. That's where I'm going to not come from again.
Hmm. Hmm. What was that for you? What are you thinking
um,
of?
well, one of a very large mistake that I made earlier on was I put my then fiance on the deed to the house I had just bought.
Hmm.
We were sitting in the closing office for the house. It was my money, my house, my everything, but we were engaged and we were going to get married. And she just was like, "Whose name do you want? Both names on the deed or just one?" And in that moment, I didn't say, "Hold on, Sarah. What are the implications?" I didn't want to look dumb, okay, in front of
Yeah.
Sarah.
Yeah.
And so I didn't ask her, well, can you just like, what would the implications of that be? Does it matter? What are the consequences that you're asking behind this question?
Right.
I didn't know
Right.
in that moment that I just gave the man I was to break up with in a few months hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Oh my God.
And it was irrevocable. And when the breakup was happening, of course, when we were sitting in that office planning to be married, I couldn't imagine that he wouldn't know that it was my house and wouldn't be like, "Of course it's her house. She bought it." Because that's when you're in
Wow.
love and it's amicable.
Right.
When
Yeah.
we were at the end, not very long later, that there was no goodwill, there was no extension of course it's your house. There was just like, "Well, I'm on the deed. Suck it."
Wow. Wow.
And that was definitely one of, and so the subterranean part on that is my embarrassment to stop and ask a question to someone who knows more than me, or to say, "I don't know, actually, let me go research it. I'm gonna go in the lobby on my phone." Whatever it was, we'll go, I could have done
Right.
anything. I froze,
Right.
okay? I froze from feeling like ashamed for not knowing.
Yes.
And then
Yes. Y-
also the to wanting partnership, wanting it to include him in our life, in our financial life, when that is an emotional choice. The reality is, this is my third house. I had to sell two other houses to buy this house. I've been working my ass off for decades to be in the position to purchase this house, and I've only known you for 8 months.
Wow. Ren, you are like you are speaking some truth here because I made a smaller but similar mistake in this whole like but we're in love and I'm going to support you. And that involves finances as well. I feel like this may be a third conversation, but let's talk about it here for a moment, because when my ex-husband and I first met, we were sort of in the first couple of years of our relationship. He wanted to start a business and his credit was not good. Red flag. His credit was not good. And he wanted to use my credit score in order to be able to open up a business line of credit to invest in the business. And right in my head, of
Yeah.
course, yes,
Yeah.
because this is going to benefit us both.
Yeah.
This was years ago. This was over 20 years ago. And I just paid off that loan like last year.
Oh, wow.
Because it ended up being a massive mess. Money continued to get pulled out of that line of credit. When he passed away, I had to pay it because my name was on it.
I think you make a really good point. Some missteps go away in the moment, and some
Yeah, haunt
absolutely
you.
do not. Um, one,
Yeah,
I think we can keep teasing apart the list because I think it just keeps bringing up these subterranean things that are
yes,
very relatable. But one of the
yeah.
ones that has lingered, and I wasn't even going to put this one on the list, okay, because it's a sensitive topic. But one of the ones that has lingered is a simple little, like, $20,000 loan to a bestie.
Mm,
Now, okay, everyone in the world says don't do it. Everyone in the world might be right. I had a couple of good experiences to date. I love to be someone who is resourced enough that if someone can come to me at a key pivotal time in their life or for a reason, I am happy to extend. I always do promissory notes. There's terms, it's legal, it's a loan. It maybe doesn't have interest, but it has some penalties if you don't meet the deadlines, whatever, right? I'm very logistically scent oriented.
yeah.
And that particular loan was kind of going on 8 or 10 years ago now and has led to the demise of a 25-year friendship, has cost me endless sleepless nights, is not
Mm,
resolved, and does not have a known resolution. And this is an example where you end up feeling like an idiot. Like, oh, so everyone was right. And I wanted to be the person who wasn't jaded. I wanted it to be different for me. I
yeah.
wanted it to not be true that people fuck you over. Damn it.
Right, right. And you went through all of the steps to make it binding, right? To cover your basis, right? Um, and yet it still happened. And I think that like you did all the responsible things, like we can do all the responsible things and have it still blow up in our faces.
Well,
And
yeah, to that point, I mean, so the two on my list, another one I got into kind of business with a boyfriend, a then boyfriend, and I put $55,000 into his house remodel, and we were kind of doing it together, and then we were going to sell the house and like flip it and split the money. It was like a business, right? Again, all the legal blah 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 blah. By the time he ended up started like doing drugs and I wasn't aware of it, and he like really slipped out of my life and into drug abuse, and like I literally never saw him or the money again. Um, no lawyer in the universe would talk to me. I mean, they wouldn't touch it.
mm,
They wouldn't call me back. I learned a valuable lesson there. Like you can have all the signed promissory notes in the world. It doesn't mean it's defendable. Like that kind of money isn't go afterable. Um,
okay.
and I didn't really know that. I didn't I don't know. I guess I was just calling legal counsel to try to see, is there anything I can do? And it's like the answer was so hard no, to the point that no one would even call me back. No one's going to mess around for. small claims court of $55,000. I mean, it's gone. It's gone.
Wow.
And so I don't know that I wonder, this is more of a discussion for women who have and we're so naturally beneficent. We're so naturally community oriented. We're so
Yes.
naturally supporters of others. And so I think that this is a topic that women should unpack together and not just necessarily listen to the general noise on the topic. But where I've landed is, if you're not willing to give it as a gift, you probably shouldn't give it as a loan.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
For
it's a
sure.
lot of pain. It's a lot of pain. And it really is sad to lose relationships over money. It's really sad.
Yeah. Yeah. That always feels really icky.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the money in the end, like,
Doesn't
well,
matter. Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't, it feels like it doesn't matter. The relationship just has so much more value. Yeah.
Except that what happens in all along the way is the respect is eroded, and
Yeah.
therefore, if the relationship no longer has respect, the relationship is eroded. So it's not eroded because of what happened with the money. It's eroded by the way it was handled.
Yeah. And what do you think, like, what is that erosion due to? I mean, it's going to be different in each situation, but like, is it like people not being accountable? Is it shame? Is it like, is there a name to what's happening?
I would imagine, I can only conjecture that on the side of the person who's done the borrowing and is now acting however they're acting, whether they disappear literally or they are evasive or they're sort of blaming and putting it back on you. Oh, well, you don't need it. Whatever it might be, I think for
Mm,
that party, it's a ton of shame.
okay.
And the healing would be, and then on the party that has lent the money, I think you just feel like intensely disrespected. And I think the healing could be deep transparency of like,
Yeah.
I am embarrassed, ashamed, disgusted by myself. I am like, if someone came to me with such vulnerable accountability and not excuses, not I'm a single mom, I do, my job, like excuse after excuse after excuse is not accountability.
Yeah.
Totally the opposite, in fact. And
Yeah.
there's also a space for me to get to articulate, it is skin off my teeth. That same $20,000 that I pulled out of crypto to give you would have been hundreds of thousands of dollars today. You don't think that there's a consequence on my end? I don't understand. Like, just that there is an actual ability to be seen as having taken a loss or made a
Mhm.
choice that I could have made a completely different choice and grown that money. Even in a high yield savings account, it would be thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars more. But no, I gave it to you for zero interest. Where are you going to find that? And now I'm being
Right.
like blamed and criminalized and made excuses to. So now I'm supposed to both do it and get to made feel bad about it. So it's like the toxicity comes when the true vulnerable conversation isn't there.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, when the accountability, right? The place where I'm like really honest and that transparency you talk about, absolutely. Yeah, there is something about I feel like the word the term that's coming up for me is like money leaks, right? Not so much money mistakes, but places where we leak money because we
Mm,
don't have those boundaries around relationships, around, or we don't feel comfortable in the moment saying no. I talk about freeze and fawn. You talk about the freeze earlier about like, I should know this. I don't want to show that I don't know this
yeah.
by not asking the question, right? And then the fawn is like, I'm going to say yes because, right? Like we're together, and of course I'm gonna da 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 da,
Okay,
right? And
I am so into what you're saying. Can I keep using concrete examples to show
yes, let's
because this is
go.
so good. So I fawned big time. And just to put a bookmark, most of the rest of ones I can take the accountability that I just asked in the last example, that accountability that maybe someone else could have taken and would have healed it and been a balm. In these other examples, it's me who's had to take the accountability. Okay, so I was consulting a couple of women to start their own version of a soak. And we had been working together for years getting this going, and they were at the point of leasing a big commercial building in a fancy pants city, and so the lease was extraordinarily expensive, and they needed a guarantor. They didn't have the credit to
Right.
procure that kind of commercial lease. So I fawned, and I signed my name on the dotted line of a lease that was, if it were to be broken, was an $11 million owe.
Shut up.
And
Oh my
I
God.
I kid you not. I lost so much sleep over signing it and stuff, but I just fawned. I absolutely fawned. And it's so subtle what you're talking about. The undercurrent there was like I wanted to be liked. I wanted to be powerful.
Mhm.
I wanted to be part of the expansion of the new soaks. I wanted to be on a team with these ladies. You know what I mean? Like all that
Yes.
subterranean, those are not business decisions. On a business level, neither of these women had ever made or started a successful business. It was the most ridiculous business decision. Here's what happened. They balked on the lease. They couldn't make the payments. They couldn't raise the money. They couldn't make the payments. And I was on the line for $11 million.
Oh my God, Ren.
Yeah. Then I'll tell you what else happened because I have angels, and angels need to come into this conversation.
Yes,
What
please.
happened was some little thing in 2020 called the pandemic.
Mm.
And after losing weeks and weeks of sleep and trying to figure out what to do and being in negotiation with this big commercial lease company, the pandemic was like ramping up. And I decided to play pandemic. And I just said, there's no possible way that the girls can do this right now. Everything's shut down. The home location is shut down. The proof of concept is completely closed. Like there's nothing we can do. Maybe you can keep all the earnest money, like whatever, like, is there anything we can do? What can we do to get out of this lease? And I held a yardstick, and on one end of the yardstick was us walking free and having spent, I don't know, $65,000 on returning to them like $65,000 of tenant improvement money that they had given these girls. And on the other end of the yardstick was me declaring bankruptcy, which I had already procured a bankruptcy attorney at that point and decided I could still live. I mean, I would be bankrupt and dying inside, but I wouldn't die. So, okay, I wouldn't die. So me declaring bankruptcy and owing $11 million. Then what ended up happening is I don't know. Then there were angels, then there's angels, enter angels. And what ended up happening is they let us off the lease entirely because of the pandemic and said that we didn't need to return the $65,000 of tenant improvement money. Like better than the best
Wow.
yardstick, the best spot on the yardstick I could find, it came out better than that.
Amazing. Wow. Talk about like divine intervention. That could have been just devastating. It could have been devastating.
Well, yeah. And so the accountability, so then I get to spend a year exhaling and with my head to the floor praising Jesus
Yes.
and taking in really really taking in what it was I was to learn from that fawning and really really harvesting what I had done as a way to move my energetics with money forward.
Mhm. Mhm. It's so interesting how this conversation went from like the tangibles to the relational
Yeah.
because this is a big money leak for women. especially since we are such relational beings and we want to help people. And we can't do it obviously at the cost to ourselves. Um, and so I'm wondering, like, I feel like I want to ask you, you having been through some really big lessons here, how would you do it differently? Right? Like in those moments, like what would you have said to your fiance or to these women? How would you have said no? Right? If you, if you would go back and say no, how would you have said no?
I think an example of that has presented itself in the last couple of years. I have a beloved, I call her like a business partner. We're not exactly legally that, but she's the COO of Soak. And we really wanted to build another Soak together, and we moved forward. And this can be in the missteps, but I think it's also an example of the evolution of the energetics that you're asking about.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did move forward. I did purchase a building, and for months and months and months, attorneys, all of it, just endless amount of money and time and energy. We really couldn't find that sweet spot in the legal ease, which is called a partnership agreement, meaning like you get 50% and I get 50%. Obviously that wasn't going to be the case because I was bringing the money, but she was bringing a lot more of the work. And anyway, we were literally tit for tatting over percentages of this company, this new company.
Mm-hmm.
And it just felt worse and worse and worse and worse. And I think I did let it go on maybe longer than I would have. But at the end of the day, there was a moment where I said, this is a no, because this is the feeling of what it feels like to be out of integrity with myself in hopes of being liked or it going well for someone else or someone getting what they want. This is outside of the realm of pure business and into the realm of like my feelings and emotions, which is like not safe territory because I've learned that that's not safe territory. And so I literally said, this is done. We're not spending another dollar, pencils down, on this project. And unless something else happens, we're just not going to do it. And, to date, we're not going to do it. And I am, as one of my money missteps right now, in the middle of that experience is going to have cost me about $200,000.
Mm.
Because the building's for sale and we're taking a loss and all the money spent on architectural drawings and the legalese of the partnership agreement. So we went into something, we went very far
Yeah.
down the road into the development of it. And then there was that stop. But I think, quote unquote, losing $200,000 is a braver and more forthright business wise thing to do than have had entered into the wrong partnership.
Right. And that's why, I feel like in this example that you're giving, I feel super hesitant to call it a mistake or a misstep.
Yeah.
I feel like, I just feel like, the word you used was integrity. And I'm just like, I'm feeling such a strong yes in my body right now as you say that. It's like, okay, like we will sometimes lose money when we are in integrity. Even
Mm.
even if you make a pivot in your business and you've been making your money a particular way that doesn't feel quite right, but it works, right? It brings in the money, but then you decide to do it more in integrity and you lose money, or you start talking about politics because it is really important to you and people are turned off and they stop buying from you. That is integrity where you lose money,
Mm.
right? Like there's a tangible effect, right? But I think that I feel like this is a wonderful place to close the conversation because it's like, yes, it's not a mistake, it's not a misstep when you move from integrity, and sometimes there will be tangible losses involved.
I want to know if you think there's a relationship between risk tolerance and success in business. And what is your risk tolerance like? And maybe where do you think it comes from?
Well, that's such an interesting question given what we just talked about. I think that when it comes to risk tolerance of a market, I tend to be um, when it comes to investments, let's say, I tend to be more risky. What not when it comes to other relationships or like a business relationship. I tend to be a lot less risky because I have gone through the experiences I've gone through. I tend to hold back a lot until I have to feel really safe in order to move forward on something like that. Um, and I recently did move forward with a business partnership, but then and as soon as I started to put my foot in, I was like, no, and I pulled back, and the loss was not very much, so it was fine. But when it comes to a market, like I will be I have a bigger risk tolerance when it comes to source something that is not necessarily um, involving another person. So a lot less risk tolerant given what I've experienced or what I've been through and the choices I've made in the past. Yeah. What about you?
Well, I just want to underscore that the word you said safe, and I think I want to bring that back to women and money in general and say that the more that you can steep yourself in conversations like this, the more that you can digest every book, and there's so many good ones on money and women and money, the more you can start to do simple acts like opening high yield savings account and start to see like hundreds of dollars coming in a month that you're doing nothing to procure except taking the making the change, and you start moving, that safety increases in your body and in yourself. And
Hmm.
so therefore I would say for me the needle, I'm incredibly risk tolerant. Incredibly, and yet the needle moves in direct proportion to how much I trust myself.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think we have the access to grow that safety through education and engagement, which is sort of at the heart of all of everything we've been talking about.
There are two things you said, right? Like you are highly risk tolerant. And one thing that I want to name is that when you take big risks, there will be big losses, right? Potentially. And I think that the way girls, women are raised is to not take risks, is to be very safe, right? We don't get the dress dirty.
Mhm.
um, right? We don't like mess ourselves up. This is sort of the all of the subtle messages that we receive about like playing it safe, budget, save, don't buy the latte, right? All of those things. I I I really feel that that is part of like what makes us less risk tolerant, what keeps us from investing, what keeps us from making big moves, right? Because like the bigger move you make, like the potential could be really big in the positive direction. It can go in another direction that is like not as pleasurable or favorable. But I think that, you know, a lot of the people in the world, I'm going to just say a lot of the men in the world who take big risks have like, they make a lot of mistakes, but they keep moving. They're they say, okay, well, I made a mistake. Well, I'm going to keep going. They don't like harm themselves in the process in terms of like assaulting themselves. Oh, you made a mistake. Oh my God, how could you have done this? Da, 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 all the shame, the self shaming.
And
They
that's
don't. They don't get stuck there.
And that's exactly why I asked the question, what do you think is there a relationship between risk tolerance and success? Because if you totally just hit it, if you can shorten the refractory period on
Hmm.
self beratement and
Yes.
move and just keep moving, like wow, like almost with fascination, like wow. And I think of it also as such a great like honor and joy to be getting to be in this game called life with this tangible thing called abundance and money, and to get to play. And like you don't win every game you play, nobody does.
Exactly. Exactly.
And so I play a big game, and I would say to anyone, everyone, like, the bigger the game, exactly what you're saying, the bigger the potential losses, the bigger the potential wins. But no entrepreneur, no true entrepreneur is going to birth their big dream without this medicine of rolling with the flow of missteps and wins, both with like neutrality as you grow,
Yes.
you know?
Yes, that neutrality is golden, right? And that's what keeps us from like making ourselves bad and wrong and terrible for having made this misstep. It's just kind of like, oh, okay, I learned something. Oh, look at that, right? If we can become this compassionate, neutral observer of what is happening, then we also move through the lesson quicker, right? We're just like, okay, let's metabolize this and let's keep it moving, right? Like obviously you get to feel the pain around it,
Yeah.
right?
I'm just laughing because this last one you were asking about, and I was like, Wren, you have 2 days. You have 2 days to stay in your pajamas and mope and feel like shit and cry and pout and stamp your feet. And after those 2 days, you're gonna get the fuck dressed and we're gonna move on. Like, and so it's like whatever. It could be 2 minutes, but you know, in the past, it's been a lot longer. And you make a joke out of it. Like, look at
Mhm.
yourself from above and be like, yeah, that's okay. I want you to cry and scream and throw shit. And then we're going to get up and go on a walk,
Mhm.
you know, and we're going
Mhm.
to keep running your
Exactly.
business because your business needs your big girl panties on. So you got to put them back on. You got 2 days.
Exactly.
Just make it a game.
Yeah.
It is, you know. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I really appreciate this conversation because I didn't expect it to take this
I
turn.
didn't
And I
either.
think this is super valuable
Yeah.
just because, I think about because I work on wealth stewardship and really about like moving money into community. And I think that this is, we're talking about the shadow side of moving money through these relationships and how you can get burned. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's fascinating. It's a big money league, and and there's examples even of like, if you let's say you've made a lot of money and you have family members who then come out of the woodwork, and it's like, oh, you have this cousin who needs help, and you have this other,
100%.
right?
Oh, no. It's,
Yeah,
yeah, that's not theoretical. And
right. That's another example.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, the way people look at you for having, and as women, how we
Hmm.
also hide our having because of these issues. This is deep, a deep well, Isha. This is, we could go so many layers here.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so I really
absolutely.
invite, for both to Isha and myself, I really invite follow-up questions and thoughts, and let us riff back to you. You can DM either of us on Instagram. You can find us all the ways. This is a can of worms. It's really worth opening and not being so afraid of.
Hmm. Hmm. Yes, thank you so much for this conversation. So worthwhile.
Yeah, thank you. What a joy. Until soon. Bye for now.